Welcome to the Dr. Leadership Show, where we take a look at how you approach your work and personal life and how we can make the most out of both of them. A weekly get-together where we get real about self-improvement and development as we all make this not-so-easy journey through life. Our discussions will cover ideas and concepts from how to grow your career to how to lead your family towards prosperity and happiness. We don't pretend to know it all, and the doctor is the first to be vulnerable, discussing his own weaknesses, both past and present. This is about growing together and having some fun while we discuss what is happening in the crazy world we live in and how to make the most of it. Let's strive for awesome together. Let's get after it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dr. Leadership Podcast. Hope you're having an awesome Wednesday. Hope you're having an awesome week. Fall is upon us. My football team didn't win last weekend or yesterday since I'm recording on Sunday, so kind of a bummer. Bunch of good games, bunch of upsets. College football is great because of that. Hope you're having an awesome week. As I said, this week we're following up on our Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche series that we did the last couple times, a German philosopher from the late 1800s. And this episode is going to continue down the road of Nietzsche, which was about merit and self-development and self-accountability and those types of things. And I'm touching on, it's a touchy topic, right? Which is DEI and kind of the demise of DEI and how corporate America is shifting away from it now. And they've realized that merit matters. And first and foremost, disclaimer here, I'm for all people, all types, all sexual orientation, all creeds and colors are welcome on my team. I'm very, very fortunate. I have a very diverse team from a demographic standpoint and a lot of diversity of thought, which is something that DEI is not really a big fan of, is diversity of thought. So we're going to go into this little iffy subject here a little bit, but I wanted to put the disclaimer out there. Hope you're checking out the website and looking to join because I've got a couple of great Leadership Lounge guests coming up. I've got Allie Stark of Allie Stark Wellness, who is a consultant, a coach, a leader, a person that thrives around getting people to understand their inner self. She's going to come on the show. I'm doing a great interview with her next week. And following that up with another great one with Mr. Ed Wallace, who's got a book out. It's called Business Relationships That Last. He's got a couple other great books as well. Going to join the show. So a couple of really good Leadership Lounge episodes coming up. So all you do is you go out to www.drleadershipresults.com, click on the subscribe button, join, $5 a month. You get early access at these, the weekly drops by me, myself, and I, the Dr. Leadership Show. And then you get early access to these wonderful interviews of other leaders in all sorts of industries to come into your life and give you some guidance on what might inspire you, what might drive a spark into your daily routine that causes you to do what? Personally grow. Success is determined by our decisions. Outcomes are not given. Nothing is guaranteed in this life, so take a hold of yourself and go out and learn something new. So great stuff coming up. You can also reach out via email at drleadershipresults@gmail.com. Give us a word, give us some feedback, give us some direction, whatever you might think here. But again, we're going to go into this topic, and I'm calling this episode The Demise of DEI, Why Merit Matters. And again, it's following up on our Nietzsche series, the last two weeks' episodes. And remember, those two episodes around this German philosopher focused on self-accountability and, of course, results, right? You can determine your outcomes is what this is all about. So they're really good concepts to give consideration to, especially in today's world. We have somehow been pushed towards a desired state of a world that's completely focused on a person's color of their skin and their gender or sexual preference of people, etc. Yes, say that again slow out loud. We are focused on race, what race someone is, and their sexual preference or gender preference or pronouns. Welcome to the 1950s again, folks. Remember when you were hated because of the color of your skin? Maybe you don't remember. I was not around in the 1950s either. But it was it was not a good time. It was pre, Dr. King and all of the different steps that were taken in the 60s in the United States. And we have really cycled back on the other side of that coin, and it's very concerning to me. I work for a big corporation, name to not be put forward here, that has embraced some of this, but you've seen a lot of changes in corporate America as of late, because this has really turned out to not be as good as they thought. It was a reactionary approach. And since the crazy summer of 2020, when there was looting and rioting and buildings being burned and all sorts of things around what was going on in the country, and specific things that were being misconstrued or misled intentionally to kind of rile these things up, we've kind of fallen back to these 50s, as I said, and DEI has taken on a life of its own with a very shallow approach to try to right assumed or real wrongs. And what I mean by shallow is, instead of looking at what are the root causes that someone or some demographic is not getting the right number or the right opportunities, instead of looking at the why, they just try to check a box and say, we're going to hire as many of certain colors and creeds as possible and feel good about ourselves. And that's not fixing it. I'm for everyone having an equal opportunity. Let's figure out how to empower them by their own decisions to be placed well for that opportunity. That's what this is about. Now, first, again, I want to say this a second time. I want any color, creed, or sexual preference on my teams. And you know what? I am very fortunate to be a part of a team that has all of those boxes checked. I've got tons of females. I've got people of color. I've got people that have different sexual orientation. I've got conservative people. I've got liberal people. I've got people of different social economic backgrounds, big difference in social economic backgrounds. However, most of them that I have on my teams did not grow up in a super affluent household. They ground and grinded until they got their own opportunities created. And that is what I'm talking about here. It's not an anti-something, it's a pro-something. And the pro-something is self-accountability, self-drive, making good decisions. That way, the opportunities come to you. Don't count on a governmental program or a corporate program to give you the promise of good results. As long as they do their job and have earned the right to be on the team through merit and accomplishments, I'm all for it. If those parameters are not the case, then I have no time for silly acronyms that are supposed to make me feel virtuous, right? That's what's going on here. Is a lot of this is about trying to make people feel better about some of the challenges that our world faces by just putting it under the rug and saying, we're going to put a program out there, we're going to pay a bunch of money for people to come in and start being anti-someone else to give a perceived group more opportunities. You know, I think DEI stands for didn't evaluate intellect or didn't evaluate intelligence. Let's evaluate merit. Let's not evaluate color, creed, sexual preference. That's what I'm saying here. It's an iffy topic. There could be people right now that are screaming at the radio, Dr. L, stop being this way. No, man, this is the real me that is saying, go after it through merit and accomplishments. All of you can do whatever you want. Let's not be this silly society that we were supposed to have shed decades ago. That's what I'm talking about. Every day I deal in reality. Results and accomplishments matter. They don't care in corporate America what color you are when they fire you for not getting the job done. They don't care what color or creed you are when you are breaking rules inside the organization. So why should we care on embracing you into the organization? See, you shouldn't need a department to have a culture that is all-encompassing on allowing all perspectives and points of views to be listened to. And I pride myself off that. There's a lot of leaders in my organization that pride themselves off of that. But we get caught up in this trying to keep up with whatever the virtuous task is at hand that's been laid out there by others by misleading what the true issue is. So diversity, equity, and inclusion sounds wonderful. Certainly makes a lot of people feel good. But what seems to happen more times than not is, as I said, that DEI stands for we didn't evaluate the important things: intellect, intelligence, capability to do the job, preparedness for the next job. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more coming up. You have to be ready for the role. You have to have earned the right for the role. And what we are doing is we are trying to put good feelings and emotions in front of results. The report, checking the boxes, is not more important than the result in life. I'm sorry, if we use this type of approach, we're going to set ourselves up for long-term failures because we're going to have people that aren't ready to do what we're asking them to do. I said earlier that DEI is a very shallow approach in today's business environment. So let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by this is that we are being focused to shallow empathy. We're focusing the person's color, sexual preference as if they have been held back because of it. What we should be focusing on are the root issues of why people of color, maybe, I'm just using that as an example, maybe not as well positioned as others, as an example when thinking about diversity. There are a number of studies out there, and you can look them up. Just go to that Google engine or that DuckDuckGo engine if you want to see all the results. And those studies have looked at why certain demographics, as an example, aren't graduating from the prestigious universities or the advanced specialty degrees, like law at Harvard we'll use, as an example. So what these studies have found is that the failure rate is high because these DEI placements were not adequately, like I said before, prepared to be in the programs to begin with. It's not because of their color. It's not because of the melanin in their skin, but because their education and their achievements were not on a level needed to succeed at a school like Harvard in this example, where the pace and expectations are immensely high. What I mean by that is you have a kid that she comes up on in a demographic in a let's use Chicago inner city schools. She might be a person that is a 4.0 student in those schools. What we have seen is that they can't pass kids at reading level, writing level, or arithmetic. So we ought to be holding teachers and administrators accountable here. That's the root cause. But because Harvard Law has been so interested in diversity, they will choose someone whose education quality and typically teachers teach to the lowest common denominator in the classroom. And when you have a bunch of people that aren't able to read and write at level, you're keeping others held back. So then we try to do the right things and say we want to give, and that's where the empathy is there. We want to give that person a shot. So let's put them into Harvard Law. And then they sit there, and day 3, they're lost because the speed and the pace is from very high levels. So what happens is we put them in thinking that this is great, and they feel very proud they're going to Harvard, and they're 2 weeks in, and they're failing. See, there are wonderful law degrees from state universities that may be a better placement for these higher education seeking individuals because they're more prepared for that. We ought to have only, and Harvard's a terrible example now. I'm disgusted with these higher education universities. I'm going to touch on that in a minute too, because DEI stops at certain demographics. But what we've done is we're setting people up for failure because we're trying to make ourselves feel good when in fact we're doing a demoralizing step forward. We're actually worsening the problem because you're taking a somewhat good student, putting them into a fire that they aren't set up to fight yet. Then they feel as if they've been a failure, and it causes the demise of that person's growth. We have to pace and set pace and expectations appropriately. You have other demographics that are exactly the opposite of this. They're at such high levels. They should be in the best of the best classes, but because they don't check the appropriate box, Asian community as an example, Harvard and Yale, they were sued because of this and found guilty. They were holding them back because they were trying to get the mix right. They wanted to check the right boxes instead of going after and getting the best students, the ones that have the merit to be in the programs. So we feel good about more diversity in the school, and then we fail them, set them back psychologically. The cure here is have that person with their do their advanced degrees in an environment where they're prepared for it. Like I said before, there are great attorneys that went to community college first, then a state school, then advanced education. They got brought in, they got their study habits away from what they were used to in these schools that maybe didn't have them set up appropriately. We checked a box to put them in, but they weren't prepared. So you're not doing any virtuous thing here. That shallow empathy is actually having a degrading effect. See, we get so wrapped up in that virtuous feeling that we forget to do what is right. Is it right to hold back one demographic who is tops in their very competitive class to lift up a person of a different demographic simply because of that said second demographic? Of course not. Merit matters. There are people of all creeds and colors that are super high achievers. Find them and add them to your teams for the right reasons. Accomplishments matter. Don't use reverse racism, which is basically what this is, to make some target on a hiring demographic or on an award demographic. Give someone the raise because of a creed or color. No. If they deserve it, they deserve it. If they don't deserve it, help them get to a point of deserving it. What's really exposed the insanity of what DEI became? I think DEI, in its core, when it was first being set up, had the right ideals they were trying to accomplish. They just went around it and about it the wrong way. What's really exposed that's the wrong way was the insanity of DEI and how it interacted with these takeovers of these higher education universities by basically terrorist sympathizers, right? Following the October 7th ordeal of 2023. Just terrible word. Just past a year since that terrible, terrible event happened. But what DEI has led to is suddenly hating Jewish people was hip. I mean, you got these universities that are all about inclusion unless you're of Jewish descent. Suddenly threatening people with your desire to not even let them exist on the planet became acceptable in the name of empathy towards another group. You had these university presidents, I think all of which are gone now, sat in front of Congress and were asked, is it hate speech if you say, I want to kill you and I want to eliminate all your family and friends and you can no longer be on the planet? It depends on the context of that speech. What? Come on, folks. If we really want to be a society that is as pure as possible and as good as possible, we got to cut through this proverbial BS. Of course that's hate speech. And it cost them all their jobs. And suddenly the universities are on fire and buildings are being taken over. And they're holding up signs that are celebrating what is documented as terrorist organizations in this country. The inmates are running the asylum is what we suddenly have here. See, equity is not about making things better, but it's about virtue signaling here. And corporate America is not waking up fast enough. They are now. They're starting to wake up to the fact that this has been a lot of a big waste. It hasn't resulted in what they would hope for. And that's what a lot of these policies are. We want to make you feel good, but they don't have any practicality to them. Society and different cultures and things are not going to accept it. We all need to be open-minded to diversity on our teams and in our companies. But it must be based on merit. It must be based on self-accountability. If getting more people of certain demographics into better careers is our goal, which it should be, if we've got a group that's being held back, why don't we attack the things that are holding them back, such as I said before, their early education, and attack cultural issues that are holding them back? Why don't we go into the school systems and hold teachers and administrators, instead of having reading at level and writing at level and arithmetic at level being in the low single digits to zero? There are certain schools in Chicago and Baltimore that have had 0 students at grade level for several years in a row. You've got to get into the community, and you've got to start attacking that from a culture standpoint. The kids need to go to school. The teachers need to work with them and not pass on the problem. They just want to pass them so it's not my issue any longer. Then you have the school unions, the teachers' unions, standing up and demanding more pay. We have thrown billions of dollars. There's a school in Chicago, 36 total students. We're spending over $100,000 per student per year to have them not be able to pass. That's the net issue here. We got to get 90% of the students to pass grade level exams, not 90% not being able to pass it. Because then they're prepared and able to fight based on their own merits if they want to go to that crazy school called Harvard or Yale or whatever might be the case, Duke, North Carolina. A lot of these schools, North Carolina as an example, have said, we're out of the DEI business. This is insane. It's nothing but racism on the other side of the coin. You're just asking somebody else to sit in the back of the bus. It's not Rose any longer. Now it's Ricky or Susie or Juan. We're not doing the right things here. We're trying to make ourselves feel better, but we're not moving the ball. In big metro areas, there are schools where 0 students can read and do the math. That's the problem. They're getting admitted into colleges over someone else who has earned that opportunity. Or they're getting hired for a job that they aren't ready for. I see that in companies I call on, even at times in my own company. You look and you go, they put who in that role? They have no prior experience in that. How are they getting in that role? And that's a terrible thing to think about. Our society is slipping towards the edge of oblivion due to identity quotas and philosophies. It's a circling firing squad. When you have, what a lot of people want us all to do is to hate on each other because you don't look or sound like me. And they're doing this by programs such as DEI. They're doing this based on you don't get the opportunity because you don't check the right box. What that does is that drives tremendous amount of resentment, and that's never going to be good for a society overall. We want all to be welcomed. We want all to be accountable. We want all to be successful. We want all to be there on merit. I don't want a doctor doing a heart surgery on me that was a C- student, right? D's get degrees, C's get degrees, if they didn't earn all of their way through that school. I don't want my pilots that way. I don't want my teachers that way. I want them the best of the best. It's like a bad satire comedy going on here. Until we realize that no one is entitled to anything in this world, until we realize that hard work is the vehicle to success and that rewarding good behaviors and not rewarding laziness or victim attitudes is the way we need to ride to give everyone an equal opportunity, not an equal outcome. Equity is a terrible word. Equality is a good word. See, equity is just taking the numbers of certain demographics and saying that's how many need to be in this role. That's not right. That's not the way to do these things. Some people aren't for those roles. If that were the case, then we'd have 52% of all construction jobs being handled by females. It's not going to be that way. First of all, our brains work differently. Men are more mechanical deep down inside. Goes back to the hunters. Landscape, they go out and build things and capture things and take the hill. Females are more on the nurturing side. Nothing wrong with any of this. It's just we are built differently. Men and women are different. We have to find the sweet spot for everyone. Not everyone. I certainly should not be a doctor. I certainly should not be a surgeon. I certainly should not be a teacher. I think sales leadership has been something very good for me. I think motivation is very good for me. I think coaching is good for me. But I also understand that I should never, ever think that I should be, driving a semi for a living. It's outside my sweet spot. It's not because I'm better than it. It's because I'm not made for it. I'd wreck that sucker. I'd have a wrapped around a tree. I'd fall asleep behind the wheel. I'd kill somebody. And what's finally happening is many corporations and universities are waking up to the fact that DEI is actually racist. That's not coming from me because I'm a white guy. That's coming from me because standing back, you see that if you were choosing to put someone in a role based on the color of their skin or their sexual preference, that is racism, or that is sexual orientation favoritism. You cannot go through society this way. Just because you've changed the people that get to make the choices doesn't make it that you've made it right. All you did was flip the coin. These companies have realized that results matter. You see all sorts of big companies, Toyota's come out of it and said, we're not going to do this crap anymore. This is stupid. We were trying to check the box so the governments think we're good, when it's not virtuous to be anti-anyone or to put somebody at the head of the line because of some reason that no one else can control. Merit is what we need to have this done on. Self-development is key. Let's invest in early education and economic programs that elevate people to a mindset of achievement versus this damn victimhood. Everyone has an opportunity to be whatever they want. I've seen great images in the past where you have three people, all the same background, it looks like, right, from a demographic standpoint. One is an attorney, one is a police officer, and one is a defendant. They're the same, just different choices. Now, some might say, well, they only had the bad choices because they were just put in a bad spot in life. You can pick up and move anytime you want. Well, you just can't pick up and move. Some people can't do that. Yeah, you can. There's support programs in every city in this country. Anybody that's sitting in downtown Chicago in those inner cities right now and is complaining about how they don't have any opportunities, get up and move. You got family somewhere. Get yourself out of the environment that causes this perpetual situation and find a way to empower yourself with opportunity. Choices matter. Let's help people make better choices so they can earn bigger opportunities. To pick someone based on a specific identity will never work, since it drives resentment from the achievers, and then it's over, man. Then it's over. The sooner we drop identity as a core concern, the sooner we progress as a nation and a society. You can think I'm crazy, you can think I'm wrong, you can think I shouldn't have broached the topic. It's been weighing on me to bring up a tough topic like this, but now is the time. This is ridiculous on how we're allowing society to make people that are born one way feel guilty and people that are born another way feel victims. We all rise to the same sunshine. We all lay down to the same sunset. You have to be accountable to your own decisions, to your own steps, to your own village you surround yourself with, to the tribe you choose to hang out with. You have to be around parents that care. You have to be a parent that does care. You got to show people the right way, the difference between right and wrong. That is how we get our society back on track. There's lots of other things that would be controversial that I could say right here, but I'll cut that short for another episode. So here's the net. Embrace people of all creeds and colors. Embrace people of every background. Embrace everybody of difference of opinion. That's how our society is great. But embrace them with the expectation that they earn the right to be embraced, that they got there based on their own hard work and driving their own outcomes. Don't fall into this trap that you're trying to check a box and that suddenly you're better than you were before. You're only fooling yourself. Stay awesome, everybody. Talk next week.